Welcome to the Global Citizen Life. Today on our podcast, we have Amy Yo. And Amy is a well-being coach and CX expert. She transforms the lives of businesses by helping individuals cultivate purpose, vitality, and resilience while guiding businesses towards sustained growth and enhanced customer loyalty. Well, welcome to the show, Amy. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Sally. Thank you for having me. Thanks for
So,
the introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's just give the listeners a little bit of background about you and kind of where you grew up and where you are now, and maybe kind of what made you choose that location.
Yeah, cool. So I am born and raised in Singapore. Singapore, I think, is it's a city, like it's a small, really small city, and everything is very convenient, and like educational system is good. Healthcare system is good. Like the reason for saying all this is because like I think I speak for myself, and also like maybe what I see. I do see that like people, including myself, like kind of get really comfortable in our home, and don't really cross our mind to kind of move away. And I'm born in the 80s, so it's also a generation thing, maybe the younger generation, they have like, that adventurous side of them, and they want to, go out there, try, different places, and like live a different lifestyle. Yeah. So for me, I think I started a little late, but never too late.
Never too late. It's never too
Never too
late.
late. Yeah, yeah. And right now I'm in Malta, Malta. So I'm living on Gozo, which is an island slightly away from Malta, and a ferry away actually. So like I will joke with my friends. I'll tell them that I'm leaving. I try to describe my home, like where I am. It's like Pulau Ubin of Singapore, which is an island that belongs to Singapore, but it's a ferry away. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it is where I am now, and I've been here for slightly more than a year, and I'm on a digital nomad visa. Yeah, so my work is remote, so therefore I'm able to actually have this like opportunity to get this visa. Yeah.
And I think you brought up a couple of good points when you said one that things for the generation or younger people now is very different, because if we think back to our parents' age, or even people in their 50s 60s ish, we that was before the internet. And so I mean, we knew there was a world out there, but really learning about it and seeing it was only what we would get from the media or the news. Where now with the internet and things like Instagram, Facebook, and everything, with all the photos and videos of what people are doing, we've really gotten to see more of the world, and with that makes us want to physically go and see more, is one part. And then obviously now with again the internet, working online, working remotely, but before it wasn't an option. So it wasn't very possible for people to travel unless their job literally moved them and their family for 1 2 years or whatever it may have been. So I think we're definitely also lucky in a time frame that we're able to do these things, because generations before us, it would have been a lot harder. I don't want to say anything was impossible, but it definitely was a lot harder. And then having to find work and legally being able to work in other countries made it a lot different.
Yeah.
And so coming from Singapore is very interesting, because some people strive to go to Singapore. And it's funny, because sometimes people ask me, because I'm from Canada, they'll be like, well, why would you leave Canada? Because there are people in the world that, strive to go to Canada. And I believe when we are somewhere, we think that we just get used to it and it becomes normal, and then we just don't see how special it is. And we have different wants and dreams and things like that. So how did you choose Malta from leaving Singapore, and then not even Malta, going to the small island of Goza, not being on the main island itself?
Yeah, ironically, we didn't even like, okay, so I moved here with my partner and our dog. So, ironically, we didn't even like, we just read online, like you said earlier, like with technology, it's so easy nowadays. You just go online, find out information, and then like just make your decision based on that, you know? So, of course, there were like some research work, where should we stay, stuff like that. Yeah, so I guess how should I put it? It's like you have to really go with an open heart.
Mm.
Yeah, I think when your heart is open, your mind is open. I don't know about the mind open and the heart open part, because when you are willing to try new stuff, willing to meet new people, willing to, do anything from the heart, you will have an open mind to kind of see things from a different perspective. Yeah. Or news perspective. Yeah. So, yeah, like we chose Malta because it's an English speaking country.
Mhm.
So their first language is Maltese. And most people on the island actually can speak English. So that really helps, like, to kind of, immerse ourselves into the culture and living
It makes things a lot
a
easier,
lot
because
easier.
as you're learning how everything works, at least you're learning in a language you understand.
And like, I think everything kind of like by chance in a way, because Malta is so small, similar to Singapore. It's very easy, similar to Singapore. Like everything is so similar. I don't exactly feel. Sometimes, like, that crossed my mind that like, I don't exactly feel like I'm very in a very different place. Yeah, there's a lot of similarity, but I've prior to coming here, as in living here, I've never traveled to Europe. Don't ask me
Okay.
why. It never crossed my mind to actually, no, maybe because, like, it's so far away and there's a lot to see in Asia. I'm like,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, I will take like little breaks, like, just to go to Thailand, Indonesia. So it never crossed my mind to actually come to Europe. So, and the one thing that I think I've done in my life so far is to actually move without much hesitation. So, yeah.
I think that's great, because I'm similar in ways. So my first trip to Costa Rica, going back over a decade ago, I bought a house on my third day there. My first time ever there. We put a down payment and bought a house there. So I do things a little bit extreme. When people ask me, certain things, I always say, don't do things the way I do things, because I tend to do them in extreme ways. And I didn't speak Spanish, didn't know
Mm.
anybody in Costa Rica. And then after I bought the house, like at first it was just going to be retirement home, rental property. By the time I retired, it would be paid for. So I was thinking really long term. Well, life never goes the way we think it's going to go. And I think it was about 2 or 3 years after buying it, I
Mm.
ended up moving to Costa Rica with my daughter. She was 13 at the time. And again, didn't speak Spanish, didn't know anybody there, because we only went there a few times for vacation. And then my second move was to Spain. I was in Barcelona for 3 days, decided I was going to move to Barcelona. I did have some other travel plans already done, so I was spent a week there. But on day three, I decided I was going to move there. And I think it was about 3 weeks later, after my other plans that I had already booked and places I had to be were done, I ended up moving to Barcelona again. Still, like, my Spanish was still horrendous from even living in Costa Rica, because everybody spoke to me in English. So didn't really speak the language, didn't know a soul, not a single person. I have a place now in Montenegro, which is in Europe, and they speak Montenegrin, which I don't speak a word. didn't know a soul. Like I sometimes wonder why I make things hard for myself. So it is good that with some places, English speaking helps, or if we have, Spanish speaking listeners, there's a lot of countries to choose from. But it's great that you're very similar to me in a way of just kind of taking that leap and having faith.
Yeah, talking about similarity, I think you bought a house like quite quickly. I didn't buy a house, but my partner actually bought a house in Spain like recently. Um,
Okay.
Kind of quite quickly, like we were there for 3 months, but like within the first month, we actually like found somewhere, and then like you said, like we can't speak a word of like Spanish, maybe more me, not so much of him. But it's very interesting. Like we found this place in it's towards the mountainous area in Valencia.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it's a very small village.
Hmm.
Everybody speaks Spanish, but
Hmm.
like I don't know, we're just really lucky to actually be there because even though like I can't speak Spanish, but my neighbors or the people in the village are curious about us, like who are we and why are we there, and then really interested in like, making friends with us and like sometimes you invite us, out for like some like cakes or whatever, and then
Hmm.
we'll use like a Google translator to translate for
Yes.
hours, for like 2 hours maybe around there. Just, so to sometimes it might feel like a little scary to move away from your home, but there are people, you see, so you can meet nice, kind people everywhere. So yeah, so I don't think yeah, I don't know. Like at this point, I think I'm still enjoying like, going to different places. If I have the chance to move like you to many other places, I'll do it. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's unfortunate that for people who listen a lot know that I'm not a fan of the media. I think unfortunately every country's media provides propaganda to the way that that specific station or media outlet wants to. It's not really fair. It's not always accurate. Sometimes intentionally not accurate, sometimes unintentionally, but I think a lot of places, they make people almost fear going other places and thinking that, it's dangerous out there. Your country or your city is the best place to be. And for some, sure, that's great. You love your city, you love your country. Absolutely, that's great. But I think there's so many wonderful places. There's so many beautiful places in the world. And there's so many great, friendly, helpful people. Like I I don't know. I would really have to try to think of a time where um that somebody was like super rude or, like really not helpful, like in a bad way. There's times where, maybe they don't understand, so they can't help me if they don't speak English or, things like that. But I have more stories of people who have been good and helpful than I can think of. Like I can't even think of anybody in all my travels that has just been like rude and mean. And I've been a lot of places, like 45 or 6 countries. And so, and I know people that it's nervousness, of course, because it's the unknown, right? But it's like going to school for the first day when we were a kid, or the new school, right? We're nervous the first day. We don't know how it's going to be. And there's a saying that really the only difference between nervousness and excitement is when we're
Mhm.
excited, we have an expectation of a great, happy outcome. When we're nervous, we're worried that the outcome's going to be negative. That's the only difference to what those feelings are, is what our own expectation is.
Uh, so like you just have to, manifest the positivity, right?
Mhm.
Like the
That's
outcome
right.
should be positive. If not, then like you be nervous, like, yeah, from the get-go, I guess.
Hmm. And so how did you're in Malta there on a digital nomad visa. So how did that work? What was the process for that visa for Malta?
So, I don't quite remember how like we like chance upon Malta, but we went online and we were looking at like, okay, digital nomad visa, where can we get?
Hmm.
And maybe Malta came out, and
Hmm.
the process only took us about a month.
Oh wow, so very quick.
Yeah, it was very good. That's from the process is in like from submission of your documents, and
Hmm.
authority to approve your visa is about a month. So
Okay.
yeah, and because everything's in English, is really straightforward. Whatever they
Mm.
need, just provide them. Stuff like that. But I understand because we've been trying to get a digital nomad visa for Spain, and
Okay.
it has been quite painful. This is all I can say. So I hope things will change and like the process can be, a lot more friendlier, easier like Malta.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And one thing perhaps to think of too, because Spain has a number of visas and all countries have many. And sometimes what people need to look at is people think the digital nomad visa is the easiest and best one to get, but that's not always the case. And sometimes the digital nomad visa, you have to prove higher income and it's for
Mm,
like maybe 1 or 2 years and that's it, where you could have say like what they call a non-lucrative visa, so you're
mm,
not going to actually work in Spain like for a Spanish company because you're self-employed, you work for yourself, and the amount of income that you have to prove is lower, and that visa is actually better for people who are thinking maybe more long term, because then that visa can turn into temporary residency and permanent residency, where in most countries, I don't want to say all, but in most countries, that digital nomad visa never turns into a residency status. You have to kind of start all over for that residency.
yeah. So for Malta, if I'm not wrong, we get like a 3 years period. So
Okay.
So for every year, you can renew and
Hmm.
obviously subject to approval, and you have
Hmm.
up to 3 years, and
Okay.
that's it. You just have to move away to somewhere, and then you can try a year later, something like that.
Right. And then who knows in that 4 years' time from now, will that digital nomad visa still be available? Or will the rules for it change? And we just, I mean, nobody can predict the rules. I think as how the world is going, I don't think digital nomad visas are ever going to go away.
Yeah,
But like you said, you have to be prepared. Every year you have to renew. So conditions have to be met. And if that's not a problem, that's great. I would always be a little bit nervous, be like, what if they don't renew it? What if something with work changes? But then you have to leave in 3 years. So there's
yeah,
a little bit of that, you know, that you have to leave. And for some people, that's great. It's like, I'm going to be here for 3 years and I'm going to love it. And it's great. And then I'm going to move on next. But I know that there's going to be some listeners that may think, oh, well, if I'm with somewhere for 3 years, what if I don't want to leave?
yeah,
Then you
exactly.
have to look at other visa options and kind of start over again.
Yeah,
So I always like to say to people, kind of think what is your long-term goal? If you know it's only a couple of years, great. Whatever visa is easiest for you to do and great. But if there's a possibility for more long-term, then the digital nomad visa may not be the ideal one for
yeah,
that person or for because of what they want. As we've said, everybody, has different goals and different wants.
yeah, exactly. So for Spain, I guess we will have to relook into like other visas that are available. Yeah, rather
Mhm.
than the nomad one. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I think with Spain too, I think their non-lucrative visa, the amount of income that you have to prove is lower in the non-lucrative visa than the actual digital nomad visa.
okay, okay, good to
So,
know.
which is strange. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that makes
Like, but
sense.
on it when it comes to government and policies and visas and things like that, there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. But we just have to say, okay, those are the rules, and okay.
Yeah. I guess like living abroad and like trying to get a visa, that's one of the first step, but it's also like a step that is necessary and sometimes can be quite confusing and complicated. And
Hmm.
you will probably have to consider like health insurance. Not consider, you will have to get a health insurance.
Hmm.
So for Malta, if you are British citizen, or
Hmm.
you don't actually need to be covered for how to get a health insurance. So there are pros and cons of different visa, but right now, like I only have Malta, and I've not been to any other places just yet, so I can't quite do a comparison. But from what I understand is that, like my partner, he's a British, so he doesn't need like a health insurance. But for me, I'll have to get a health insurance. What else? Like
And I
yeah,
think, sorry to interrupt though, and I think though, because, and I didn't know until recently, I've got a friend who is starting to spend a fair amount of time in Malta, her and her husband. But Malta, yeah, it's English speaking. And it used to be, I'm going to say, and don't quote me, but it somehow used to be like a former British island because people drive on the left side of the road there. The plugs where
yeah,
you plug your phone and your chargers and everything are the same as in England. They're not like Europe because,
yeah, yeah,
she
yeah,
told me, and at first I was like, what am I, but it's Europe. She said,
yeah.
yes, but no. So there are different, Malta is very different in that aspect than the other European countries.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
could be then why with the healthcare that
Mm,
is a rare exception because of that historical
mm.
connection with England.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, so good for him, not so good for me, but I think it's all right because I think with like if in Spain it's the same, like we both have to
Mhm,
get health insurance.
mhm,
So it's not something that I will complain about. It is what is necessary. You just have to do it, you know.
mhm.
But I think um, it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
At this point, I
And
can
what
tell you.
and have you had to use the healthcare facilities in Malta yet?
No.
No? Okay, well that's good. It's good.
Yeah, I've seen the doctor a couple of times, but it's just like that, that's it. Like I don't really, yeah, so I can't quite tell like whether the healthcare is, good enough. But at
Mhm.
this, yeah, like so
Okay. In Spain, I haven't personally had any major things. I've gone, for annual checkups, which honestly, the annual checkup through private, I did have private healthcare in Spain. I have residency, so I do have access to public as well. But for the cost of the private, it's a very small amount. And I mean, like the physicals that they give are way better than even Canada. And people think, oh, Canada healthcare is great, and I'm compared to Spain is not so great compared to Spain. Now that was just with that aspect. But I do know a lady who had a cancer in Spain,
mm,
and she has private healthcare and public. And through her cancer treatment, she decided to go through the public system because she felt that the public system would have been better for that than the actual private system in Spain. Um,
wow.
I thought that was very interesting, but it just, to me, it just says how confident and how good that the public system is. But she said, yeah, for certain things, the private is better. Maybe if you need a hip or knee replacement or something, you'll get in sooner through the private. But certain things that the Spain system is very good. So. It is something for people to consider if they are moving abroad. Healthcare is
Yeah,
important, and the fees, generally speaking, especially for people who come from the United States, where they pay a lot for their healthcare premiums and visits and things like that. Um, I know sometimes they'll look at taxes within Europe which will be potentially more than what they're paying in the US.
yeah,
However, when you don't have to pay all those healthcare fees and you're paying taxes instead, sometimes it balances out. Sometimes you'll still have more money in your pocket, plus better healthcare and things as
yeah.
well. So it is kind of weighing those things for some people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. And then like it depends. If you're talking about like terminal illness, which like, that's really unfortunate. But for general like fit and like healthy individual, um, yeah, we have to make sure that we are protected, health insurance, everything. But I don't know, like I think when you move to somewhere new and start living a new life and like you are in a mental space that you are exploring, curious, I link all this to positivity. So therefore your health kind of like get, better as well. Like, I mean, again, I speak for myself. Like maybe if I'm in Singapore, I'll probably visit the doctor once every quarterly. But here, only if I really catch a cold. And it's not because I'm not covered, like I covered, so I can actually just walk in to a doctor to like, get my claims and everything. But I just feel like, there's no need to see a doctor. So I think there's a lot of consideration when moving, and then you look at healthcare and everything, but also bear in mind that like um, you really want it, and your mental state will kind of like just go with your everything, like physical, spiritual, yeah.
I have found too, a lot of times when I've talked to people who have moved abroad, that as you're saying, like they say they don't do anything different and they've
Mm,
gotten healthier or they've lost weight. And
mm,
I always say, but you are doing things different. Even
mm,
though they may not seem like they're still eating, let's say if they, cheese and potato chips if they like that and fruit or something, but there are things changing. And it could be that they're walking a lot more because they're in a
yeah,
new place, they're checking it out, they're walking a lot more. And I do think
mm,
our diet changes.
yeah,
Even though we may be eating what we think is the same, may not be always the same. And especially if we go from like a cold climate, like I initially did from Canada to Costa Rica. When it's cold, I want warm, hearty, filling food to warm me up
also
because I hate
yeah,
being cold. But when it's hot, I want fruit and salads and like I don't want a stew. But it just no, it's hot out. I want light things. And so I think
yeah,
there's that aspect as well. And then as you said, there's that mental aspect too of just it's different. It's a different culture. We're in a different place and we automatically just start thinking differently. We're moving differently. We are eating differently, even though in a way we think we haven't changed or we're doing anything different, but we
yeah.
really are.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in total agreement with you. Yeah, like I think, like in Singapore, it's so convenient. Like most of the household, maybe they cook once a day or even once a week. Like I used to live by myself, so I just, get out there, take away, eat at a restaurant, or we have hawker centers and like food court. So we do that a lot. But once I moved here, like eating out, um, how should I put it? Like because we are multi racial in Singapore and culture as well, so we have different cuisine. We are exposed to a lot of different cuisine, so you have a lot of choices. But here, not so much. Maybe on Malta it's okay, but in Gozo, not so much. So, I mean, you still can get like Italian food, you can get Chinese, you can get Indian, but you don't like I don't do the same as I do back home. Yeah, so I tend to cook a lot more, and then when you cook for yourself, you will be like, oh, not too much salt, not too much sugar, stuff like that. You'll be a bit more, conscious about like what you put in your food. So that will definitely
Mhm.
help in like, your health and like you said earlier, lost weight or maybe, yeah.
Mhm. And
And
it's true. You are when you're cooking, you're a lot more aware of what you're consuming. When we go out and eat, we're just like, oh, it tastes good, and we don't think about it because we don't see what's going in those delicious mashed potatoes with lots of salt and butter and everything else. They're just yummy.
yeah, and then I guess like in Singapore, like we do our favorite activity. I would have to say for many people would be like going to the cinema to catch a movie. It's like
Hmm.
week. Ever since I came here, I've not been to the cinema at all.
Do you
Okay,
miss
I
it?
mean, not really,
Okay.
because yeah, I have no, I don't know, like I can watch Netflix at home, so that's not a problem. And I was like already doing that, back in Singapore. But um, the part of the reason for us to actually move away from Singapore is also because like we want to be more to be out in nature. Yeah. So it's not saying that Singapore doesn't have like nature. We do have, but how should I put it? Like it's a different experience. Yeah. So Gozo is so small and we love to run. So it's like something that we do regularly, just getting out there, even if it's a hike or like, a lot of time we do our training on the island, just running around the island. And it's amazing. Like who needs to go to the cinema?
Nature and everything is your cinema. You have the beauty of that. And it is interesting how in so many ways, like I speak at different conferences and things, and one question that I get asked a few times I've been asked because I've been living in different places is there's a concern if Amazon Prime delivers. And my thought is that should not even be a concern. Like, really, how much? Because what are you buying that you really need? Because we think we need a lot. We think these things make
Mm,
us happy. We think the cinema is great because it's there and it's just what we do. And it's so automatic for us, our own lifestyle, wherever everybody is, even if they've moved, it becomes the new normal becomes normal. So many things are so automatic that we don't even realize. And what I love about Montenegro is as far as I know, there is no Amazon Prime. I don't think I can order. Like, there's a post office. I don't
yeah.
get mail. Like, I get one electronic bill for my utilities. I get for my HOA a piece of paper stuck in the door. For the garbage, I get a piece of paper stuck in the door. And it's great because it's things, I'm not advertised to buy stuff. I don't miss buying things. And I think like, what do I need? I would rather take that money instead of buying things and stuff to go for a great dinner, go on a trip to another part of the country or another country and just doing those things. And it's interesting how we think we need things or we think we're going to miss certain things. And when
Yeah.
it's not there, we
Mm,
don't really even miss it because we're
yeah.
enjoying doing all these other things.
Yeah, yeah. Like I think you have a great point. Like I don't really miss the things that I used to do in Singapore as much as like, I mean, I still run, I still cycle, still pretty much the
Mhm.
same. But don't really cost you that much money or money at all when you go out for a walk or run or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, like I think that's probably a positive.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So Singapore is known as a very expensive place to live.
Mm,
So how does Singapore compare to Malta? Or sorry, how does Malta compare to Singapore?
good question. Because I think I got like friends who ask me like, don't you miss like, eating out, like what we do here? I'm like, yeah, sometimes. But
Hmm.
I really want to eat the stuff that is how should I put it like different cuisine like maybe Asian food like I get like Japanese Korean but I don't think I can find Korean here on Gozo maybe on Malta not on Gozo. So so yeah so I think the restaurant price is pretty much maybe the same more or less but because I cook a lot at home now, so um, I think in terms of grocery, it might be maybe better here because I don't cook that
Hmm.
much when I was back in Singapore, so it's very really hard to kind of do a comparison. And
Right.
in terms of like so I do enjoy like my happy hours,
Hmm.
like like a beer or two, like on Friday, and
Yeah.
that I can tell you is a lot difference. Like you can get like a
Okay.
really nice craft beer for maybe about 3, 4 euro.
Hmm.
But in Singapore, you will be expecting to pay maybe about 15 euro craft beer.
Hmm.
So yeah, so yes, it is expensive in Singapore, and rental in Singapore is more expensive than here. So yeah, I think in terms of I would say quality, I do think that I have a better quality here than yeah back home.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And it is always hard to kind of price compare things. Like you can compare, a craft beer to a craft beer. That we can compare. When people ask me sometimes about housing, I like that's a hard one because every country and even every city has such a range of prices. Like people I know here in Montenegro can rent a place for 200 euro a month.
Yeah.
And some people would be like, that's so cheap and be satisfied with it. It gives me what I need, well, and other people are renting for 3,000 a month. And the
Wow.
price to buy can be anywhere from 60,000 euro to
Mm.
over 1 million. So it's like, how do you, especially in Montenegro, and I mean the same thing is in Barcelona. There's the kind of there is a lower end price, and then it just goes like into the
Mm.
thousands or millions and millions if you're buying. So it can be hard to price compare those things because it depends on city location and a number of things. And what is a comfortable, even if it's a two-bedroom or a one-bedroom,
Yeah.
what is comfortable and nice to one person may not be comfortable and nice to another. So it is hard to compare those things.
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard to compare. And it depends on like you said earlier, depends on location, right? If it is
Hmm.
a small country, like Malta is really small,
Hmm.
much like Singapore, but I think the housing is still cheaper than Singapore.
Hmm.
Yeah. So therefore, if I were to compare Malta with Singapore, I think it's quite identical. But if you compare to Spain, different. The country is so big. So like if you
Yes.
go away from the city, you can get like really like cheap housing and
Hmm.
space and like nice home, but you will be away from everybody else.
Right. You're
But
you're not you're not going to find that in the middle of Madrid or Barcelona.
yeah, no, no, you won't be able to do that. Yeah, yeah,
So you're right, and so it depends, it depends on what people want. But I say generally, there is a price point for almost everyone, especially in Spain, because it is such a wide variety. But it depends on, what we truly want, what's most important. And we never get everything we want for the price point we want, unless we have a ridiculous amount of money. Then maybe when you're in the multi-millions, maybe you do get everything. I don't know, but I don't have that kind of property, so I wouldn't know.
yeah. Same
But you
here.
might be further away from the beach. You might not get a sea view. You might have if you want a terrace, maybe it's not as big as you want, or it's things like that. But that's also the same with everybody in our home countries, right? Like
Yeah,
even when I was living in Canada, I had a nice house, but there was also always nicer, bigger, more expensive everything, right? So it really depends. Then I think people need to consider there's a big
yeah,
difference between need and want. What do
mm,
you need?
yeah,
Because when our needs are fulfilled, there's a difference. We always want, it's human nature. We always want more, we always want bigger, we always want better, newer, whatever. That's just in us. But when we think about what we need, and then we do the activities and we have the community and the surroundings that make us happy, we don't have that big of a desire for those wants because
yeah.
we're satisfied, our needs are satisfied.
Uh, like you, I don't know, like moving away, I miss my family, I miss my friends,
Mhm.
but with technology, you can actually reach, like I call my mom almost every day.
Yeah.
To the extent that like sometimes we just keep quiet and like we have nothing to say to each other. but but at the same time, like people, I don't know, like people might like some people might be a bit anxious or afraid that like, oh, what if I can't make friends? What if I can't find my tribe? What if I can't find a community that I can connect with? I guess um, it's really like up to the individual. Like I said earlier, you really have to be open-hearted, open mind, then you will probably attract the right kind of people, the right people, like like being here just for slightly over a year, and we were actually away in Spain for 3 months. I would have to say that actually makes a couple of connections that are to me really genuine, and I feel like, oh, at my age, I still can make like friends that are like that connection. Because when you're younger, it's very easy for you to make friends. You have like, oh, everybody's my friend, But as you
Mm.
get older, your friends get small, like the group of friends that you have get smaller and smaller. So like I don't know, like I won't at this point, like leaving my friend like back in Singapore, I feel like yeah, I do miss them. But then I feel like I can actually make new connection and maybe another true and genuine friendship. So yeah, so it's very
And
interesting.
I think that's really important to note to people too who are worried about it, but it's also then important to say, well, like, where are you moving to? You have to know yourself. Like, you like biking and jogging and outdoors. And so you're gonna live in a place where you enjoy those things. So if somebody is very social but doesn't like those types of things, like they may want to live in the city. For somebody who loves the city, moving to rural, tiny village Spain is not a good
Oh,
idea. You will
okay.
hate it. Like, don't do it. If you're
Yeah,
somebody who likes to be left alone, like your privacy, you want a little yard, don't move to old city downtown Barcelona. Like, you'll
yeah,
hate it, right? Like
yeah,
we have to know what we like. And then
yeah.
from there, the types of things that we do. So wherever you're at, and then it's finding people. If you
Mm,
like jogging and biking, wherever you're at, you'll find people in that area who like to do it. Um, if you like artwork and things like that, like there's so much on the internet between Facebook groups. What's huge for sure in Spain, I think most of Europe, and a little bit Canada, but it's much bigger in Spain, is the website meetup.com. That's how
mm,
I initially, when I went to Spain, I started to go to events. I started meeting people. I went to co-working spaces. So I would be there working and we'd all have lunch together, got to know people. So you will meet people if you choose to.
yeah,
You
okay.
can stay at home and meet nobody if you choose to. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. And we as we move, we have to put in the effort because as you said, when we're younger, it's a bit different though too, because when we're going to school, we have automatic friends because we're
Yeah.
going to school. We're in the same classes, we're in the same school, we see the same people. We automatically will make some friends. If you're going for work and you have a job, you will
Mm,
automatically make some friends or at least acquaintances. You're not going to like everybody at school or work, but you will automatically. But for people who work from home, we have
mm,
to put in more of that effort. And that's part of the reason why I like co-working spaces. I would
yeah.
go twice a week when I'm in Barcelona, always meet different people, make great friends that I'm very good friends with now, and just go to other events. And some people you meet, you see at every event, and you say hi and you're acquaintances and you chat a little bit. That friendship just doesn't evolve. And then others you do and you develop it. But it it depends on the effort that you put in. And an effort has to be put in. Friends aren't just going to come knock on your door because you're new to the city or town and all of a sudden be your bestie. Like, that's just not the way it's
Yeah.
going to work.
Yeah. So like I think even connection back home, like your friends at home, back home, you will still have to, invest time and like, to constantly get in touch and connect. If not, you will slowly drift apart too. Yeah.
Mm.
Say that, true friends will still stay by you, but you still have to make an effort. So it's effort anywhere.
Absolutely. If we don't put in any effort, then it's I always say like it's a bit of a two-way street. And any type of relationship, friendship, relationship, family, colleagues, everything. We whatever we put in, we're gonna get out. If you don't put anything into the friendship, you can't expect it to last because it's the same,
Yeah.
right? And so we do have to, but as you said earlier, with technology, it's very easy.
Mm.
I had one time, it was a while ago, a friend of mine said, let's have a drink on Friday night or Saturday night, whatever it was. And I can't remember if I was living in Spain or Costa Rica. I'm like, okay. And we got on, I must have been Zoom. It could have been Skype. If it was Costa Rica, it may have been Skype. We're, heading back a little bit. But even then, going back over 10 years ago, it was still manageable. I had a bottle of wine. She had a bottle. Yeah, it must have been Costa Rica because we were same time zone. She had, I think, vodka or something like that. And we chatted and drank as if we were hanging out in at her house, my house, while we were at our homes, but as if we were together and drank and socialized
Yeah.
and talked because that was the best way we can do it. And when we do things like that, or just that connection, especially with video, I don't feel like I'm gone as long.
Mm.
Like I do go back to Canada every year, but I don't feel like a full year has gone by because we still Facebook, we'll still message, but when we still have those other Zoom calls and
Yeah.
chats and see each other, I don't feel like I'm so far away or disconnected from what's going on in their life. And so when I get back to Canada, we just kind of
Right.
pick up where we're at because, there's a few things we get caught
Yeah.
up on, but it's not, oh my God, I have to tell you about my whole year because we're in touch throughout the year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I guess like yeah, it's not like I think to some people like it's like my mom, like she's like, oh, you got friends there. I'm like, yeah. So so I don't know, at least put her mind at to like at peace that like I like not by myself, like I
Hmm.
do like go out. So yeah.
Yeah, and in most cases, there's going to be other people there that are also expats who are also looking to make friends, and
Yeah.
they know what it's like. I mean, the first
Mm.
time you don't know and it's harder, but once you become more of a mover like me and move several times, you get to know the process. And when I go to some events, especially when I'm in Barcelona, because there's always new people kind of coming and going, I'll notice when there's somebody new and they'll be standing in the corner just kind of watching and looking around. And I will always make a point to go over and start talking to them. Hi, what's your name?
Mm.
Come, let's talk to people because,
Yeah.
they're there and good for showing up because you can't make a friend if you don't show up. And sometimes it's just getting there because other people will see and they know, and we've all been there. And so it's easy to just walk up to a group and just, oh, hi, I'm Sally, blah, 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 and just start talking because we've been there. And that's great in those environments.
Yeah. Do you ever get like um how should I put it, bored that like I have to make new connection again?
Sometimes, sometimes it is hard.
Mm.
Sometimes I do feel like I'm always making friends. I'm always
Mm.
needing to make friends. Even living in Barcelona, there are people
Mm.
that I've met that say, I'm here for 1 year, then I'm leaving. Some, I
Mm.
don't know how long I'm going to be here. Others, oh, I'm here for a few months. So problem with a lot of big cities is they're very
Yeah.
transient and people are coming
Mm.
and going all the time. And so sometimes it's a lot harder to get close connections and friends, tons of acquaintances, because then
Yeah.
also I get it too because I come and go a lot. But then also some people are like, oh, you're not sure how long you're going to be here. Okay, we'll be friends, but I'm not going to become too good of friends with you because you're going to be gone in a year and then I'm going to have to find a new best friend again. So I would rather just we'll be acquaintances, we'll be friends, but they kind of put up a bit of a barrier. And I get it. I understand.
Mm.
Like I'm kind of on both sides. I've done that myself and I'm like, oh, don't know if I really like with me in Montenegro. I'm
Mm.
just now really been like, okay, I really should make some friends. I've had many acquaintances that I see often. But I'm like, I'm not going to be here full time. I don't want to get too close to anybody because I don't know how often I'm going to be here. And then I'm just going to go and then I'm going to miss people again. And so I've been guilty of doing that as well. And that is a little bit, I think it's definitely in the bigger cities, it happens a lot more. Smaller towns and places where people aren't coming and going as much will be a little bit easier. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think And I think though, in a way though, we should always be prepared to make new friends because who knows
Yeah,
who we're gonna meet. And even if we're good friends for 5 years or 10 years, like I never know when my time's up. I always say to people, I never know when I'm gonna get hit by a bus. And hopefully never, but why couldn't I have great friends and it be maybe a shorter period of time, 1, 3, 5, 7 years, who knows? Instead
mm,
of being that, oh, I'm tired of making friends. Well,
yeah,
why? Like,
yeah,
just,
exactly. I think it's always important to constantly make connection, whether where you don't have an expectation of like where it goes, like how long it will last,
mhm,
but more on of it, even if it's just 1 year and it's like great friends and like, great friendship. So there's nothing to lose. And I asked you the question before because like you travel a lot, you've been to different places, but I bet that you must actually kind of because of technology, right? Like it got better. Like now it's so
mhm,
easy, like just
mhm,
make connection. Maybe 10 years ago it might be, a little harder. How am I going to get connection with my like this person that I really bond very well with, you know? So
mhm.
so I guess
And
yeah, so shouldn't be afraid to just go out there and make friends, yeah.
it's true. And chances are, especially now and moving forward, if we meet people in a country, unless they are a local person from that country, which you can and develop friendships with, a lot of people that we also meet are expats and people who are moving
Mm,
around, whether they're digital nomads, they're staying for a few years, 5 years, or they're not sure. I have met people. So here's an example. I met a friend of mine, she's a good friend now. So I'm from Canada, moved to Costa Rica. She's from the United States, moved to Costa Rica. Well, there's a couple of them actually. And I have since met up with them in different countries since I had left Costa Rica. I've been back to the United States to see them. I've met them in different areas. So even though we have friends, and one of them, she still lives in Costa Rica part-time. The other one is now back in the United States most of the time, but does travel a lot. And I'm kind of all over the place. And so the other thing is just because, as you said, even though we don't know how long they're going to be there, it's great to have that friendship because we never know. Like you can meet that
yeah,
person again. You keep in touch online with all the technology we have, and then it's,
yeah,
hey, let's meet up, or I'm going to be here. Are you close? And especially I
yeah,
find with Europe, it's very easy because Europe compared to Canada or the United States, it's small. So to
yeah,
travel from one country to another, there's so many flights and trains and everything to get around that, I always say to people, if you're going to be anywhere in Europe, let me know because with some advance notice, like I can be on a plane for a very cheap amount of money, probably in most cases, €100. I could fly to 10, 15 different countries, depending upon the cities, but there's a lot of options because it's so cheap, especially compared to North America. And I can come see you and we can go and hang out for a day, or I can stay a bit longer, right? And so sometimes when we make those friends, it's good to make them because even if they leave or you leave, you could still cross paths again. You could still run into
yeah.
each other again. Even in Canada, I had a friend of mine in Canada and we met up in Ireland. I can't
Wow.
remember, she messaged me or she saw a post or something that I was in Ireland. And she was like, well, we're in Ireland too, or we're there next week. I can't remember exactly how it happened. And we ended up going out and having dinner together and having a couple
Yeah,
drinks and just hanging out. And I was just like, who would have thought that we were work colleagues 20 years ago in Canada? I left Canada so long ago, and then all of a sudden we meet up in Ireland of all places, in Dublin. Like you just never
yeah,
know.
exactly. So cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's good to be open. Just put in the effort, make lots of friends, and
Mm,
because you never know. There's a saying, and I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's something. We have friends. Some friends are for, I think it's some friends are for a reason, and we have tons of friends for a reason. Like we could meet hundreds of thousands of people throughout our lifetime for a reason. And out of those 100,000, let's just say a certain percentage are a season. So they last longer than just the reason. And then a
mm,
small handful of all of those are a lifetime. A lifetime doesn't necessarily mean from the time we were born. A
Yeah.
lifetime is from when the time we meet them till one
Mm.
of our lives.
Mm.
And it was a lifetime. And it could
Wow.
happen late in life. We never know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, like I think connection or a community, a tribe, really helps in like, I mean, if you have that open mind and open heart to make connection, so that will
Mhm.
definitely helps a lot with like, moving abroad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the rest will come, I suppose, because if you're in difficulty, if you have anything that, you're in trouble with, or you have any good thing to share, that's your tribe. Like you can share, you can still
Right.
celebrate birthdays, you can still celebrate, Christmas, but it's just with different people and in a different place, and it's
Hmm.
still as nice, it's still as great, it's still as like, yeah. So I don't think missing out anything.
No, and it's interesting that you say that. So here we have a WhatsApp group of a bunch of expats. A couple locals are in it as well. And somebody just posted in it today, hey, tomorrow's a special day. It's so-and-so's birthday. We're going to be here place at 8 o'clock. If you guys want to come celebrate with us and just, let us know so we can reserve if you can make it a table or a space for a right amount of people. And away, people, yeah, I'm coming plus one. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there, but a little bit late because I have something else to do. But, and so all of a sudden it's not just, oh, it's my birthday and I'm in a different country now. There's probably going to end up being anywhere from 15 to 20 people that are there for a birthday.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So you just really need to open up, and to see what's possible. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to touch base a little bit because you've got that digital nomad visa, so you're able to move around. So, for your work, what exactly are you doing and how are you helping people with your work?
Right. So I've always been in the corporate world, like back in Singapore for like 20 years doing the same, not exactly doing the same job, but in the same organization. So this time away, and for the last 1 year, I started like providing business consulting for wellness businesses. Yeah. So what I do is basically digital marketing, but in the more focus on customer experience as well as community management. Yeah, so that's one part of my work, and the other part of my work is I'm a personal trainer as well as a yoga teacher. So like I help people with like, coaching them in terms of like getting their physical goal, but also as well as like, helping people with their mental or spiritual, it's like all these different pillars that kind of form up like your well-being. So basically just helping people with their overall well-being in terms of like mental, physical, yeah. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing, and I would have to say like it's not an easy path, and I'm still kind of like figuring my way, and I'm very new to this line of work. So, but I guess when you want to, it's really an opportunity, like to do this like remotely and then able to move places. So maybe that would be like a real motivation to for people to really find a remote job and like get out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's like everything when we're just learning or we're taking the first steps, whether it's a new job, starting a business, going back to school, or even when we're younger, learning to ride a bike.
Yeah.
All of those things were all awkward and difficult at first. But then once we do it, it's step by step and it gets better and easier and we learn more and that's how we grow. And I was at a seminar a long time ago and it was something that stuck with me. It's probably been over 20 years. and we were talking about just basically about the brain and people in general. And it is, if you're not like, people are like plants. If we think of a plant, we have to give it water, we have to feed it, it needs nutrients for it to grow. It's the same thing with ourselves, and it's the same thing with our brain. If we're not making our brain work and struggle a bit and figure out new things and learn things, if we're not growing, we're dying.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, because you're right. If we do the same thing every day in and out, our brain doesn't have to think, it just automatically does what we do. We may not be dying quickly, but we are slowly dying. And we do better and we are happier when we have challenges, when we have struggles, when we're learning something new, because then when we get it, we're like, yes, right? And it's a good feeling. And so we need those struggles. So new things are always good, whether it's starting a new career, moving abroad, learning to play an instrument, anything like that. We thrive having some types of stresses of learning new things in our lives.
Exactly. So I don't know, like I think yeah, so like I think you really need to connect with your passion too. Like deep down you know that, you are, I mean, like you are good at certain things, but how can you, bring that to another level, as in like, in a more positive and like way to help others. So I think if you are looking at things that way, more or less you will know that you are actually, kind of following your North Star, Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they get in touch with you? What's the best way?
So they can find me on Facebook and Instagram is at Alt Wellbeing, ALT Wellbeing, or they can find me on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Perfect. And we will put those links in the show notes for everybody just to make it easy for them as well. Well, Amy, I want to thank you very much for your time today and talking with us about Malta. It's a beautiful area, and it sounds like you're really enjoying time there. And so, for any of our listeners who want to check it out, Malta may be an option for them.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Stanley, for the time.